So Aquaboard, key things with it, it does absorb, and you can lift back to white, like really white. I'll go over my palette in a second. Brushes. King Art Gold I just told you about. Can you see that okay? Is it blurry or you can read it? Okay, here we go. How's that? Yay. Okay. The Master's Touch is what I just told you about. It's a very small 0.1 brush. Now I do use a Joe Miller, I think it's half synthetic. And I use this all the time when I'm painting any face because it's my airbrush face. So I just go through some of those, but not too bad. And then my other one is a Kolinsky. This is also a Cheap Joe's. And yeah, these are more expensive. It's a filbert. So basically, the cat's tongue and that I use in a circular motion as I paint. So that's why I like those. I haven't found a good one that I like that's cheap and synthetic yet. So that's my brushes. Now we'll talk about the pros and the cons. Lifts easier, lifts back to white. That's a pro. Con, it lifts easier. So you can layer, and you can layer much easier than on Yupo, or we talked about gesso juice. I played with that before. That lifts. This, if you're very careful, most of these paintings that you see will have 20 layers on them. The colors remain more vivid, I think, than if you're using, Arches 300, which is my normal thing to paint on. So, like, this is actually the very first attempt at doing a face, and you can see how glowy it is, right? It's nice. I was taking like an online COVID seminar with Ali Kavanaugh. That's where I kind of got interested in this. The surface does not warp or tear. I don't know about y'all, but even on a 300-pound surface, I can make my paper buckle, but this will not buckle. And it will not warp, and it will not tear. And true story, for those of you that know me, 4 years ago, we moved here the week before Florence, and so all my paintings were in boxes and got ruined. But I whipped out some old, terrible paintings from the Aquaboard that I had, and the Aquaboard was fine. The paint had washed off, but literally I sat them out to dry, and the Aquaboard lived through 4 days of being under river water. So it's hardy stuff. You'll use a little more paint, and I use it in you guys know the tea, milk, cream theory of watercolor as you go along. So no? Okay. So, so there's a theory when you paint, you can put paint down basically 3 times. First time will be a weak tea consistency. So probably 10% pigment to, 90 water. Second time it's milk, like skim milk consistency. So about 30%, 70% water. And then the last time when you're almost finished, you go in with your darkest tones, and that's like a 50-50. So I very rarely use just bare pigment on this. I'll show you where I do and what happens to it. But you're going to use a little more paint because you'll see as you start working on it. The biggest thing, well, the 2 biggest things, that is the biggest learning curve is when you paint on this, it's clay. And so, let's see if I can show this to you without, it's going to turn, clay colored. Yeah, you can see that? So you got to get used to everything changing to a gray taupe color. But I can tell you this piece was completely covered with paint at some point. And as an experiment earlier this week, I scrubbed it off. And just some light pink there. I think Quinn Rose is still on there, a little bit stained. I didn't really work at it too hard. But you can see that, and it takes a little bit while for it to dry. So you'll get used to it. It just your brain has to get used to it. And it takes a little bit of time for it to, okay, I'm painting and everything turned gray. Yes, the price is a little prohibitive, but I've done a comparison, which you can't see, so I'll lift it up here. So if you can see this, for a 22 by 30 piece, which is a full sheet of watercolor, if I was going to buy Aquaboard at that, it'd be close to $40. If I was going to buy cold press, it would be $22, $23 and going up every day. But, so yeah, there's a little bit more of a price curve on the material itself. However, as you know, half of your, more than that, is your framing cost. And you can eliminate that because you don't need to cover this with glass and mat. So, I have 2 examples. I played a lot this week. This is really cool. This is golden. I have things everywhere. Can you read that a little bit? Yeah. This is the golden archival finish, and I just hit it with about 4 coats of gloss. And it's the coolest I'm very excited about this. I don't know if you can see this. By the way, I am not a landscape person, but I was just playing, okay? So just with the surface. So it's really cool, and you come up and look at this later. So it holds a gloss surface nicely. I don't know if anybody's ever waxed their normal watercolors, because I do for mounted on a box. And then you use wax, Dorland's cold wax. So this is a wax surface here. And so from that, I can just drop it into any kind of plein air frame, and I don't need to worry about the glass, I don't need to worry about the mat. And it's nice in a way because it lifts the barrier between the viewer and the painting, which you get with watercolor sometimes, but you don't get with an oil painting. So it's a different kind of feel, I think, and it's a little more modern.
Lighter weight too.
Say what?
Lighter weight.
It is, and here, hold that up for them. Thank you. This is, ampersand nicely will get you, this is a floater frame. So they make the frame for you too, so you can just go ahead and get the frame, drop it in, screw it in, and you're done. And by the way, I Velcro them, because may display it and then take it off or send it off to a show and then decide that because I'm cheap and I want to use the frame again, so I Velcro them and they stay very nicely. Questions? Yes. Oh, I have tips.
How do you secure them to your frame?
How do I secure them? Well, if you follow the directions, there is like little pieces of wood there, and you screw from the back, and you glue, and it gives you everything. Those are more expensive, obviously, than if you just order your own floater frame. And so basically, you just glue it in. You've got little spacers.
So you glue it in?
You do, yes.
Karen, did you just wax the painting, or did you spray it first and then wax it, or what do you?
Say that one more time.
Do you just wax the painting, or do you have to spray it?
I spray it with a fixative.
Oh, okay, that's, okay.
Because I'm just a little freaky about that. If I'm going to put wax on and it smears, I cry. But, so I just use this archival spray, and then I go ahead and wax it. So, or gloss it, so.
Where do you buy your golden archival varnish?
Probably Amazon or Cheap Joe's, okay? Wherever you get your gift certificates from for Christmas. Okay. Any questions so far on any of that? Cool. Okay. So, I'm going to show you, let me see, quickly. I'll start actually painting for you. First key tip. Yes?
How archival are those?
I'm sorry, say that one.
How archival are those finishes?
Very. They all say archival, and they do not yellow. Golden, it's, you'll see the name in here. The Krylon is archival. Golden even has in the name archival varnish. And yes, the Dorland's guarantees it won't yellow. So that's all you want to use, because I don't know if you've ever had a watercolor yellow in the sun, but it's not, or your paint fades. So yes, good question. It can be put in glass. That is an example. I brought 3 examples today. Southern Watercolor Society, which that got shipped off to and is now back, will accept aquaboard, but they won't accept it without having it matted and framed, which makes sense because it evens the playing field right when they have their show. So that one actually is Velcroed down behind the thing, because I'll probably use it again. I'll probably take that one out, seal it, and use it for a normal painting. Crickets, that's not good. Okay, tip 1. Before you ever start one of these, it's gonna have some dust on it. When you open that up, a little bit of dust. So just rinse it in the sink and let it dry for an hour. It'll save your life. So make sure you wash it off and then just let it dry. Nothing's gonna happen to it. Then you're going to sketch. Can everybody see my painting? Okay. So this is, he's so scary right now, isn't he? Yeah, I know. It's Halloween. So,
What did you sketch it with?
pencil.
Yeah, but it's the Conte or?
Say that again.
Conte, it's a brick color.
Oh, no. This is you'll see the pencil up here. I'll get to that. And I did use a darker lead. Usually I would suggest using an H because you really will see your lead on this, but just because I wanted you to see my drawing, I sketched, what is this? No, it's just a regular pencil. It's a 0.5 lead, like a normal pencil. Does anybody else use mechanical pencils for their drawings? I do. Okay, so, and it will be a lot lighter if I showed it on paper, but I picked this one because I think about 2 years ago, I had done a quick sketch. Does anyone know what quick sketches are? But anyway, it takes a few hours. And so I'd done him and I thought it was good to do him again so I could show the difference between, that's probably 140 and this. So, my very first step, once I do this and I draw the drawing, is that I would wet the whole thing again. Another key. There we go. By the way, if you're going to ask, and I'm sure you people are, I use magnets for and I use it for paper too. And I do it because I paint upside down a lot. So it's easy for me to roll this around and flip it, okay? I also normally paint at about a 45 to 90 degree angle so that I control my paint. And so my easel tips back and forth, and I'll show you that later so I don't mess up their whole camera deal. And I work from an iPad image, and usually black and white. And by the way, I don't know if you guys know this, but iPads are magnetic. Did you know that? So it'll stay anywhere you want. Okay, so basically the steps I've gone through is I've drawn it, I re-wetted it, and I put down my very first layer, which is, I have my paint palette up here. And you can see here's my paint palette, spins, pretty cool. By the way, skips green.
So it's wet when you start painting on it?
Yes, so it diffuses the paint a little bit more. If you don't, aquaboard is a little bit, I guess I'm gonna go back to my sample here. See where it's wet? Can you see wet? Can you see dry? So, I'll go ahead and use the color I'm gonna use. And I don't think you're going to be able to, so I'm going to have to shout out. But here's my paint palette. It's a very cool paint palette because it rolls and I can change these out. Not that I ever do. My primary colors that I use for 90% of any painting are going to be the Quin Rose. I don't know how to say this one, but Arlen, yellow, very nice transparent yellow. And I'm going to make a palette of that. And blue, thank you. But my blue is peacock blue, made by Holbein.
Who sells that palette?
Ah. Robax, thank you. Who's that smart person that knew that? I even have where did she get that slide? So, yes, the palette is, and you can come and look, it's made by Robax Engineering. They're in Florida, and it's pretty awesome because you can switch out colors when you want. And this is ceramic in the middle, so I have a couple of those. It's got a nice cover, and because I'm lazy, I can reach out and get my other paint, even though I really do only use the 3 colors mostly. When you paint on it and it's damp, the paint's gonna diffuse a little more. When you paint on it and it's dry, you're definitely gonna get lines. More like Yupo. So you're gonna get edges. Can everybody see this one? And she's not done, by the way, so don't yell at me about this one. But you'll see right there, I probably dropped the water on dry and very light pigment. But I love this effect that it does. So yesterday, no, day before yesterday, I started with my first level, and I'll do this on paper as well as aqua board. They're very similar to do. I started my, can you see my, yeah. Started just working on the shadow areas. I'll outline first. I use a combination of the Erlen and the Quin Rose to make a nice flesh tone. And I'll go back and forth sometimes so you'll see it's a little more bright. And then started working in some of the shadow areas there. And really, so right now this is only 2 colors. Questions so far? Has anybody taken a portrait class before? Oh, okay. Okay. I use a lot of arbitrary colors, but your skin tones, anybody's skin tones, can be made with 3 colors. I will start with yellow, a very nice light yellow, and I will probably go through, my key thing I'm looking at when I look at a face is where are my whites. And this is why I work off of a black and white a lot of times. So I can see in his face, my very favorite thing, let me see if I can get you the color. There you go. See him now? Easier to identify the whites, right? So tip of his nose, which is always true, but I loved his white eyebrows there. So, and I love this white because it works in a nice swoop. You'll see some white on the chin, on either side of his mouth. That's what I'm going to try and maintain as I do this. So, I'm going to wet this whole thing again. Oh, I'm talking to you. I've already done layer 1, and if you take my quick portrait class, I will do all this with burnt sienna. Okay? But if I'm working on a serious portrait, I will go to using my 3 colors, start with the yellow, move in the red, and then I'll start in with some blue. Very light. I'm gonna need my glasses. And pretty much you can do any portrait with just these 3 colors. Shout out to me and ask questions as I do this. Okay. It depends. That'll take about 2-3 hours. It's probably 2 layers, 3 layers. That down there was probably about 10-15 layers and probably takes a few days. I'm going to get rid of the scary eyes for you. When you paint eyeballs, they're not white. The whites are not white.
When they say the whites of your eyes, they're blind.
They're not. If you do, I mean, you can see right here, well, and he's not good because he does have a shadowed hood on his eyes, but indeed, there is not. Let's join this brow together.
Did you always paint portraits?
Yeah, you know, it's kind of something I've been doing since high school, definitely college. So it's just kind of what I love. I can get out there and try and do some landscapes and stuff, but I hate it. I just get really bored. So I don't know, there's just something about painting the face that's much more fun to me. The way you're going to make a painting glow is pretty simple. You're going to use yellow, and you're going to highlight in basically everywhere that you see there's a white. There's going to be yellow next to it.
Which yellow were you using?
Erlen. Let me see if I can put this up here.
Transparent, right?
Yes, it's very transparent. Not usually liftable. But, oh, and here it is. So can you see that and read that somewhat? Let me see if I can get this guy where I can reference him. Aerolin. When in doubt, if I don't have something by it, it's a Daniel Smith. My peacock is made by Holbein. That's the only person that makes it. And it's sort of similar to cerulean, but it is more transparent.
You have to be careful with it. I call it Raylan, so I don't know how to pronounce it.
Thank you.
But doesn't it and the Quinn Rose neutralize each other?
They will, but that's okay.
So you've got to be careful with the amount of bleed into each other.
So you're asking me if I use my Quinn and my Arlen together?
Yeah.
No, I get a nice bright skin tone orange. Let me see if I do that. Keep in mind though, when I paint, okay, there's your skin tone right there. I'm gonna need a little more Arlen to go.
Do you stick to transparency mainly? with your
Always.
brushes? Okay.
Always. Oh, I say that, but I have, on my palette, I have a few Cheap Joe's colors that I love, and I may use every one or third thing. One is, and they have white in them. So this is Periwinkle. Periwinkle, if you've ever heard it. It's made by American Journey. Cheap Joe's, awesome color. Flamingo Pink, also only made by American Journey, has white in it. And that may be it. Yeah. So those, and I will just use them, I will use them in the skin sometime, but only at the very last moment. Let's see if I have it anywhere. Probably not. How's my eyes looking there? A little better. Now I use an iPad so I get in and literally see what I'm painting. When I go darker, I will be using the same three colors. However, I will darken them. Indithrone, trying to remember this, Perylene Maroon, and then I probably will use for him Raw Sienna. So again, my three color combination, yes?
What was that last color?
Raw Sienna. So again, it's my red, yellow, and blue tones, but earth tone version of it. Does that make sense? Okay. Probably just do one eyeball for you right now.
So Karen, can that board tolerate you heat drying it or whatever, or you don't need to, or
Say it again, Angela.
do you need to air blow dry that board to speed things along sometimes?
Yes.
Okay.
Handy dandy little dryer here that I will get to you. And I, say what?
Tolerate it just like paper, I guess?
Yeah, but it won't warp in front of you,
Yeah,
and so,
that's nice.
yeah.
So you still get watercolor effects with?
Yes. And you just have to kind of play with it. Say what?
You're in the awkward position of-
No, I do this all the time at home. I'm like, so it's fine. I even bought a new one for this because I was using my husband's old one from his garage, and it was making an awful noise.
What is that hair dryer? I like it.
This is actually not a hair dryer, it's a heat gun.
Okay.
So it doesn't push the paint
Okay.
across the board as much as, yeah. Going back to my Erlen and pink combination, I don't know who just asked me about that, but, okay. So you can see that's a nice flesh tone when I mix those two together. Basically a nice orange fleshy tone. I'm gonna be using that side of my paint brush. Yeah, he's getting there. Trust me, it'll take me days more to get this, but yeah. There we go. So I want to show you, if it's close enough. This is why I use this brush right here. It is Joe Miller's Signature Series 50/50 Cat's Tongue. And it might be a little bit hard to do, it's gonna lift. But I will let it dry a little bit, come back in with a damp brush, and when I smooth it, and I use this on paper all the time, like this kind of theory. Can you see what I'm doing? And can you see how it smoothed it out? So I don't have any harsh edges on my skin tones, unless I want them. So you can see how, right now, how gray it is, yes? Level. And again, I'm using this cheap $14 King's Art for most of my work. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and, I should have wet this more. I'm gonna get lines probably, but I can fix them. Pretty much, the cool thing about this stuff is literally you can scrape it all the way back to white and start over. So that gives you a little bit of more confidence and like, I'm gonna go ahead and just pour it on this side. It's kind of cool. So, because I don't know about you, but I'm just like, I can step back for a while on my arches and then like, you know, my husband's like, what are you doing? And then I walk forward and I'm like, done. You know, and I back up, right? So, no, not with this because I can lift it up.
You just lift with clear water?
Yes, I'm going to show you in 1 second how I lift and how much fun that is. I'll let this dude dry for a second. Go ahead and do it. Because I will walk away from this guy for, you know, half a day and then come back and get him going, but I have no idea. It's the joy of being a figurative painter is what I call myself. So I have, does anyone know who Ted Nuttall is?
Yes.
Okay, so I took a class from Ted Nuttall, and he's awesome. He has sloppy dots and everything, right? Great guy. And the one thing, well, I learned a lot. He's probably, if you have not taken from Ted Nuttall, take from Ted Nuttall. But because not only does he give you how he does his paintings, but he gives you a lot of theory and design work, because he used to be a graphic artist, so was I, so we, you know, it's pretty cool. But the one thing he did is he brought his camera in. And his camera was a revelation to me because it zoomed out $900. I could shoot 900, what's it called? You know, 900 times, right? I can shoot the moon. So I can sit across the park and shoot people. So this is a young child in a parade. I don't think I have his full photo here, but if you, yeah, so I can nicely get across and not bother people because I don't like painting teeth. Who does if you're a portrait person? And I don't like the, you know, if somebody sees you taking a picture of them, they're gonna smile, they're gonna pose for you. And I don't want that in my paintings. I want it to be a moment, you know, not that. So, so anyway, that camera eliminates that because I will take pictures. If it's a child and I talk to this person's mother, I will go and introduce myself because it's not cool to go paint a child without that. But, and I carry cards around. That's another thing. If you're going to go take pictures of people, carry cards around so that you can say, I literally, legitimately do this for a living. And by the way, I'm into burnt umber now, I believe.
Do you have signed releases or not?
I do for children. And if I'm doing a portrait, like I take ballerina pictures and stuff, and they're obviously underage, so then I will have parents and yes. But there is no law against taking pictures of people in the street. So you can do that. Again, I can tell you a story. I had just gotten that camera. And if you ever meet my husband, he's a lovely person. And he loves children. And we took my granddaughter, that one, to the Children's Museum. And I had brought the camera. And so I handed it off to my husband because I was playing with my granddaughter. And he started going around snapping pictures. And he's a male, right? So remember this. So this woman beelines over to him and it's like, what are you doing? And oh, my husband was mortified. And I rolled on over there and said, he's just taking pictures for me, and gave her my card. But And I said, I'll delete them, but I'm gonna show you another really cool color if you're a portrait person. I just discovered this earlier this year, and it is a Daniel Smith. It's called Raw Umber Violet. It's a convenience color. Has anybody ever heard of this?
Yes.
Oh,
Just learned it
right?
yesterday.
Okay. So I have just been using this probably for a month or two. I think I was in Nashville this, let me see if I can show you this color. So it is a great shadow color for, can you see this? Yeah, because it's a little bit purpley and a little bit, what it is, raw umber and stuff, so. Yes, ma'am. And of course, this is on. Use the back of the paper.
Who made raw umber violet? I missed that.
There is, Daniel Smith, I believe, makes it, but I also get it from, Cheap Joe's makes a version of it, and that's probably what this is. Isn't that pretty? Can you see that? I know, I love that color. So, and it's a great shadow color, and since I'm about to move in here with some shadows. Now, can you see here, because I just made a goober, right there where my chin is, can you see that? Okay, and so watch how easy it is now to come back in here and lift that up. See up here, see where his shadow is? This is a great color. And again, I'm gonna go back in with my diffuser.
Is that a flat brush?
It's called a cat's tongue, and it's like a filbert. So it doesn't really come to a point, it's more of like a round, but yes,
But it's flattish.
it's flattish and then kind of goes, it's good for leaves, I think is what a lot of people use it for. I don't do flowers, so. Okay, I'm gonna let him sit for a second because I could noodle with this and bore you all day watching the paint dry. But I'm gonna show you some other techniques. So, this is my favorite face of the year. Is she not awesome?
She's a princess.
I went to a Renaissance festival last fall, and it was a blast. There she is. And is she not awesome? I know. Her mama probably just, when she goes out the door, goes, oh, this is a phase, right? But she is precious. So,
When was it?
it was right here in Kinston. I live here in Newburgh. So I actually drugged my grandchild and my husband, who were just like freaked out. But I was taking pictures, and actually the juggler that you'll see that I painted that's in the North Carolina one, also from that same photo series with my spy camera. So anyway, so she's, I would guess, about 70-some% done. And my whole point of doing this was that I wanted to try and get a dark against a dark and see how I could do with it. So I'm still working on that part. And everyone knows the tip of the, what are these called? Magic erasers. So I cut mine up into little pieces. Everyone knows this, right? That you can lift back watercolor paper with a magic eraser, but you'll wear down the surface. But not so with aquaboard. And I'm going to just go ahead and wreck part of this painting, I guess, a little bit to show you. Let's see where I got some white. So if I wanted to pull this back, yeah, there you go. I know I'm not done with her hair, so I can go ahead and do that. Can you see that? And that is some seriously thick paint there. Another tip is to don't use your paper towel too long. It's not obviously good for the environment, but I have to use a dry paper towel. Because you can lift also, I call it noodling, by taking and keep drying off that brush. This is my cheap King Art brush, by the way. And once that water settles in there for a second, can you see what I'm doing? I'm trying to work over top of it. Left-handed, sorry. So you can work your paint similar, and you're gonna dig into it. Can you all see what's happening? And what's cool right here that's happening is that's about 4 or 5 layers. So I have put down probably my skip's green. This is skip's green right in here, the green parts. And then I layered with phthalo, yeah, I better check these names for you, but phthalo green, which is those right there. Probably a little bit of the peacock, because that's my favorite. And then I went and made a mixture of indithrone and probably sepia to make my black. So if I point over indithrone here and sepia, because that's the black I'm getting there, up here on her horns. Indithrone blue, which just looks right here. It's a very dark blue. You can see it right there, what the darkness level of it is. And I'll either, for my blues, I have ultramarine and cobalt on here too, but I don't use them as often as I will use the indithrone or the peacock. So,
How do you spell that? Indichrome blue?
indithrone, Indathrone. Indithrone.
Okay, thank you.
And I think it's a Daniel Smith color.
So you use the indithrone on her hair also?
Oh, yeah. Oh, because she's got, here, hold on, guys.
So that's a very staining color.
But not on Aquaboard. So let me see if I can, there you go. This is her original picture. It's kind of yellow here, but you'll see that there is some black tips and stuff in there. I haven't finished her hair. That's why I wanted to kind of get to you and show you the hair. So if I mixed, somebody was saying something?
I just want to ask, how'd you get to the aquaboard? Did Ted paint on aquaboard?
No.
Okay.
I had tried Aquaboard earlier too and hated it because I'm usually, you know, doing a lot of wet on wet work and bigger brushes. And I was stuck at home with COVID, you know, everybody, I didn't get COVID, but you know, nobody could leave. And so I started just taking random things on the web, and National Watercolor Society was offering a class, and it was by Allie Kavanaugh. And if you don't know who she is, she does beautiful work on Aquaboard. Has anybody ever heard of her? And I think she was the juror for 2 years ago or something. And so she was, yeah, she was offering a class, and I was like, well, what the heck? I'm sitting here, and I have Aquaboard in the drawer somewhere. You know, everybody has their drawer of lost art toys that they don't trust anymore, so I did. So I pulled it out and took her class, and once she started talking about the gray, which I remembered hating, and to get past that, and once she started saying little brush, and let me show you something with the little brush now. So if I take a big brush, was there more questions? And I paint, you're going to see that it kind of diffuses out. If I take a little brush and a thicker bit of paint, and I'm a little patient, you see how dark I can get it now? You watching? Okay. Let me grab some of this indithrone. I'm a big, by the way, painter of, I mix my colors on my paper. So I really like this, that I can go ahead and get in a few different colors. You can see my consistency is thicker. So using the little brush allows me to get darker colors faster, and I can layer in 3 or 4 colors at the same time. See where I'm going with this.
Aaron, how do you sketch your faces and people initially freehand or?
Yes, unless it's for a commission. But I have a projector, and I never like it because it doesn't, I don't know, it just warps it to me. So I always start off, and you should always start off with a value sketch. I don't care what you're doing. Well, maybe you, because you're so
I
good.
did that years ago.
Okay, but if you're doing something realistic, a value sketch, yes? So I usually use burnt sienna because it's just my go-to. So I will do that. So I've done the draw on the face a couple times before I get to that point where I'm actually using that. And I just kind of, yeah, I took from Mary White. Does anyone know who she is? Yeah. Okay. And she will freak you out, boy, because you have to go, has anybody studied with Mary White? Okay, then you know, you go in, she's like, draw the face, you've got 30 minutes. And then we're painting, standing up, and I want a painting done in like 2 hours kind of thing. And you're just like, okay. So before I went and studied with Mary White, I sat there and I drew and drew and drew and drew, face after face after face, because I was like, oh, because there was a little extra stress, because Mary White was the juror for the Splash magazine this past year, and she had picked me, and I was in that magazine. So then I found out I was going to go into her class, and I didn't want her to know that, because I really thought I was going to tank out on this class. And so I'm like hiding in the back kind of thing, you know, and just waiting for somebody to say, oh yeah, that horrible painter over there, you put her in Splash magazine. So, but anyway, so okay, I'm going to show you some lifting technique as I go here. Anyway, so I practiced, and so yeah, you just got to draw faces every day, and there's really only a few components on the face. If you ever take my 3 to 4 day class, I actually will go into the anatomy of a face. So even if you have a crappy photo, you're still going to know where these parts go and how to do them. So I'll make you paint like just noses for half a day, and then ears for half a day, and you'll know all the names of everything, and you know. So, okay.
Didn't Mary White jury the North Carolina show a few years back? I didn't get in.
She is a lovely lady. She is wonderful. What's my time? How am I doing? I'm boring you so hard. 3:17. We're done, right? Okay. I will show you.
The white in her crayon, I know white is not white, but what did you do there to, the little, yeah.
Up there. I haven't finished it, so thank you.
So is it, what's on it right now? Or is it just left unpainted? That's what I'm trying
It
to.
is left unpainted, and then there's going to be a little bit of a light gray. One great thing about aquaboard, let me see if I can, original thing so I don't mess it up too fast, is you can take paint from one area. So say, you know, I want my streak there, I'm lifting it up. I'll just go ahead and move my paint down here. Does that make sense? Yeah, and so I like that effect. One last thing. Wow, my hair's bad. Okay, so you've got a great painting going. Let's see if I have a great painting going. Okay, this one will be better. Not done with her. I'm done with her. I'm not done with the background. I'm not happy with that butterfly thing. I don't know, but pretty much her values are set for me, so she's okay. Let's see if I can bring her up. There she is. By the way, I was in Nashville last month, and that is the original photo that I took with my camera really far away. Has anybody ever stayed at not the Greenbrier, up in the mountains? Yeah, with all the rocks there. So I was there watching the sunset, and okay, so that's her cropped in, and I just really like the light coming in from her face and onto her glasses. And I've pretty much got it set. Again, I work from a black and white. But if I want individual hairs, you can use this stuff as scratch board. And it works so much better. I don't know if you've ever scratch board on arches and you're like, eat. And it rips up half your paper and you're like, well, that didn't go well. But this is great. You can scratch individual hairs all day long. And that is, by the way, when I watch Allie Kavanaugh, she'll do a big block of burnt sienna. And you're like, that looks horrible. And then she starts doing this magic with the hair, scratching it in like this. And you're just like, holy moly. So you can see how nicely that goes.
What do you actually have in your hand? I can't.
Ah, well, yes, ampersand, because they make scratch board, will make
Oh, okay.
scratch tools. I haven't really played with all of them. This is kind of cool. It's like a Brillo pad kind of thing. Can you see me scratching? Okay. Can you see those hairs coming in? Yeah, cool. I just use an X-Acto knife most of the time. I don't use these fancy things. I just dug them out of the drawer. But a regular craft knife will give you those scratch things. And again, if you hate it, what color was that originally? Cover it back up. And it seems to resist that pretty well, so. Okay, I know you guys are probably gonna have lots of questions now, and I should be winding up. So go ahead and ask me questions. Somebody jump in.
I have one.
Yes, ma'am.
You said the Watercolor Society does accept these.
That's why I did this. North Carolina is one of the progressive ones that is using, that will accept aquaboard. Georgia does, and I'm a member of the Georgia Watercolor Society, and I just ran an experiment this year. So Southern Watercolor Society was the first one I entered, and they of course needed framed, but it got in. Georgia, I like, what the heck, they take it, I'm gonna try it. It got in, and it sold within the first hour. So I was very excited about that, I know. And National Watercolor Society takes aquaboard. Transparent Watercolor Society doesn't, and of course American Watercolors, I don't take anything. So yes, of the big three, only National does.
Because I looked up Allie Kavanaugh, where you were telling us about her.
Mm-hmm.
She describes herself as a fresco painter.
Yes, because fresco, back in the Roman times, was painting on clay. And so that's what this is kaolin clay. So she came up with the term modern fresco. And she never really, she was the juror, I think, for National or something. I'm looking at Georgia, but about 2, 3, she's never entered a competition. She's sort of like Charles Reed, if you've ever studied with Charles Reed. Right? God bless him. He never entered one competition, but everyone knows Charles Reed. Same thing with Allie. But her work is amazing. I really would say she's been doing it for years. I've been doing it for a year. So go ahead and look at her and take a class of hers if you want to. Any other questions?
This one right here, I was gonna ask you why you have glass over it.
That's the one that went to Southern, and they were like, sure, we'll take aquaboard, but you've got to frame it like a watercolor. And I called it, I'm like, I don't know how to do that, because it's a heavier, thicker
All right, I
board.
understand.
And they're like, I don't know, figure it out. So I did. And,
Can you hold it up?
How wide is the board behind that? Is it as wide to the frame?
say that again?
The board itself, is it as wide to the frame?
No,
Or is it
it's probably an eighth of an inch in.
Okay.
And
So just
I
the
velcroed
shield's
it, like I
fine.
said, I velcroed it.
A Velcro.
Yeah.
Framing yourself.
But you could glue it, glue it on
Okay.
your board, but then I had, I figured, well, I'll be taking it off again, so.
Did you frame it yourself or have it framed?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I used to send it off, but then, you cannot get your money back on that. So I use, if you ever frameiteasy.com, this is a Frame It Easy frame. So you just put your size in, tell it the mat, tell it the frame, and I think this frame probably was like $60 when it comes to you. This is an aquaboard that I'm working on now, so a bigger one, right? I'm still not happy with her, so this is a niece. I didn't randomly take this child, I'm expecting to. So this is the niece, but I'm still not happy with the globe there, but this is a bigger piece.
Can you hold it up higher, please?
Take it over to the light.
Yeah, that's a good idea, Georgia.
Yeah, nice. Let's do photographs of her.
Or hold it up in front of that light.
Hold it up.
Just hold it up.
Hold it up.
Okay,
There you go.
how's that? I think I got too dark on her skin tone, and I'm going to lift it up a little bit. So it actually is that dark in the picture, but sometimes.
Now, is
Go ahead.
it not a little difficult to lift if
No, it's not. Don't use too much water. Let me see if I can show that. That's a good question, and I mentioned it once, but I want to mention it again. If you get too much water on it, let's see if we can do it with her. You're gonna, don't do it. It's okay. I've learned I can cover it back up. You will lift too much. See that? Like that, right? But if you're using a drier brush, so a damp brush, you can very lightly lift stuff up. There we go. Just the first layer, okay? So if I had 10 layers on here, yeah, if I use too much water, I'm gonna go all the way down. If I have a very slightly damp brush, and I just wanna lighten up a little bit, there we go. I'll just be lifting the first layer. So that's a key. So make sure when you're doing that, if you see it happen, let it dry completely. Right there, if I started going, oh my God, I gotta cover that up right now, let me see if I can do it. It won't work. See how I keep moving it around? Yeah, see, that's all awful. If I let it dry completely for about an hour and come back, I can cover it up completely. So really good question, because that is one of the things that annoys you. Because in paper, that doesn't happen, you know, it doesn't keep lifting, lifting, lifting. You gotta let it dry completely, and then you can go back and work it again.
It lifts so easily, that's why you fix it afterwards?
No, I think I'm just like a chronic fixer. I don't.
Wouldn't it have a tendency to come off if it lifts so easily?
Fixative.
Oh, no, once I spray it down, like spray it with a,
That's why you
clear,
spray it down.
spray, clear sealant.
Come off, yeah.
I am guessing, I mean, if I, you know, I have dogs, right? So if my dog walked on one of these with a toenail, even though, you know, with their little toenails, I'm sure it'd scratch off some, you know, somewhat.
You fix it too, so it's cleanable and it's archival.
Absolutely. I mean, I can pour water on. This one is never going anywhere. I mean, I could use it as a coaster, you know? There's no paint coming off of that thing ever. It's sealed. So same with the wax. I've tried wax because I don't want to deliver it to somebody and then have them say, oh, it melted or whatever, right? So yeah, I can pour water on a waxed watercolor and it is sealed. So I'm thinking if it gets up to what, I don't know, 200 degrees, it will start the, you know, the surface will get tacky, but
So will we though?
yes, exactly. So,
What is the fixative spray you use?
I think it's called a workable fixative, and it's by Krylon. And I don't have it here. Yeah, I just put down the Krylon. You can use, pretty much, you could put the, Golden will recommends, even on watercolor paper, I'm trying to remember who that guy is that does the framing without glass now. He sprays his watercolor paper, Arches 300, with the gloss, about 2 or 3 of gloss, and then he lets it sit for a while, and then he comes back and does about 4 or 5 more coats, and he just frames them. I can't remember her name. Very famous painter, and he paints all those beautiful landscapes, still lifes with the dark background. And say it again.
Is it McCracken?
Yes, Lauren McCracken, maybe. And they had a big display in New York this past year called Breaking Glass. Yeah, and it was all done. Paper works, but they just sealed everything with the golden archival stuff. So more and more painters are using that because it's expensive too. Okay, so any more questions?
Is there a size when you use the cradle variety about the board?
Six.
How big it is, you don't use the cradle version? The wooden cradle.
Oh, I know what you're saying. Yeah, do I have a piece of that here? Oh, I hear somebody yawning. I don't see it here. So they make this is just a plain piece, but they will make it with a 2-inch cradle. 2-inch cradles, that's what you're asking me, right? Yeah.
If they're too big, they can't work.
Yeah, a little bit. And so, yeah, if you wax that, you don't even need to put it in a frame because you're just going to like stain the sides. I've done that many a time. But I don't like painting on those because I use the magnetic surface, so it's a little bit harder. So I like it. I do mount my regular paintings on cradle board, and I just use matte medium. Mary, you've done this with me. Matte medium, and then once it's down, you know, glued to the board, I trim it, and then I wax it. So it's kind of the same thing as buying this, but, so I will always buy it flat, and then I will go ahead and probably mount it on a board myself, or, because it's much more expensive to buy the cradled version of this, to me. So, any other questions? I saw another hand in hand. Yes?
No, all this sealing it with gold and all that, this is only for aquaboard.
No. You can do it on paper too.
Yeah.
Yes, you can. That's what we were just talking about. Look up Lauren McCracken. There's a lot of new painters that are doing sealing their paper
And
with
Dorlands on watercolor.
Dorlands. Yes.
Yeah, you can put Dorlands on watercolor.
But, no, does that mean that you wouldn't use glass?
That is exactly. You don't use matte. You don't use glass. And I do this on some of my smaller gallery pieces. I just buy the cradle board. It's unfinished, and I'll usually paint it. I take my piece of paper, cover it with matte board, matte medium, put it there, roll it down, weight it down, let it dry a day, take it off, trim it, because I've got the box underneath of it now, right? So I'm trimming it to the edge, and then I just wax it, and I wax it about 2 or 3 times. It's ready to go. I put a wire on the back.
And you're saying you're gluing this to a board?
Yes, a cradle board is, I don't have any, but it just looks like, yeah, go, yeah, walk up and down the street here, there's a bunch of people that have done it like that, but it's just basically a box, a shadow box, but it's, once you mount, you know, you put your paper on it and glue the paper down. Whole nother class, I guess, but yeah. Has anyone ever tried that? Okay, good. So, okay, any other questions?
Yes, the wax again, what was the brand wax that you?
Dorlands.
Dorland?
And it's cold wax. It's not really, it is wax, but it's also got a varnish in it. So as it hardens, you will put it on, I put it on with my hand, but that's probably not the best idea because it's probably toxic. But, where's my picture?
You can do it with a paper towel.
You can, but I don't like getting the fuzz and the fur in there. There you go. It looks like, it's a jar, guys. And it looks like that, Dorlands. And so I just kind of scoop it out with my hand. It's like the consistency of Crisco. And I smush it around. One of these is already done with it. And you can come up and see the surface, okay? So I smushed it not very well. I haven't buffed this one yet. And you let it dry for about 8 hours, 24 hours. I walk away from it. And then you come back with another buff, and you can buff it up to a nice glossy consistency. And I usually put on 2 coats because, again, I'm a paranoid freak about getting water in anything. So, and it's beautiful. I haven't put a second coat on this yet, but I will. And it's you can do whatever you want with it then, because it's got the resin in it that hardens after a while. So, any more questions?
I have a question back to the beginning. When you say after you sketch it, you wet the surface,
Yes.
spray it, or do you?
I have 2 ways that I do it. And we'll go back to this guy. I have a really cool mister. I'm like the Amazon queen. This is a quilting mister, and so it's very even spray. It doesn't do that of a normal spray. I love that, but I can also just take a hacky brush, and if you watch, right, you know what this is? Because I think the question you're trying to get to is, will it lift the paint? And no, it will not. If I go gently over this to dampen it, I didn't do anything to the paint underneath. Do you see that? Yeah, that's why this is awesome. So, yeah, that's damp and that's ready to go. I would just jump right into this and paint this again, let it dry, do it over and over again. Yeah. Any other questions? What you can't do on Yupo and stuff, right? It's staying there because there is grit here and it's holding the paint.
So you're saying each time you put that aside for a while, if you go back, you will wet that surface?
Yes, ma'am. But I do that with paper too. So I'm always working wet in the wet. Except for the very end. I don't have any normal paintings here, I don't think. I do the same thing on arches. So I like my paint getting diffused with very minimal lines. Any other questions?
Is it hot under the lights?
No, actually, I'm okay, Angela. Thank you.